This is the gist on StratNews Global. I'm Amitabh. Revi, we're going to get you the essence of what really is happening on the East African coast in Mozambique. Joining us from Maputo is Borges Nhamirre. He's a journalist and a researcher with the Public Integrity Center. Borges, thank you so much for giving us some time in Strat News and trying to explain to us what really is happening there.
Hi to everyone. Thank you for invitation. So what's happening in Mozambique is something which is not new. Unfortunately, only now the world knows about what is happening because a very important town has been attacked 10 days ago by a local insurgents, but backed by Islamic State. So the attack happened near a very important gas project worth 20 billion US dollar. This is said to be the biggest private investment in
Africa.
In sub-Saharan Africa, yes. So for the first time, the world knows now about what is happening there. From the government, which have been communicating better now, we know that dozens of people have been killed. We know that several infrastructure have been destroyed, including banks, courts, government buildings. We also know maybe the worst situation, the worst part of this attack, that thousands of people did flee their homes, so seeking for safe place now. Some did cross the border to Tanzania, which is a neighboring country. Others are still hiding in the bush now. Some did have to walk more than 200 kilometers trying to find a safe place. So in general, this is what is happening. Yesterday,
Borges, like you were pointing out, I think the government has taken some journalists finally and officials to the area, and they claim that they have regained complete control, which is still not confirmed. But we're playing out some kind of a timeline for those who are not familiar with the situation. The insurgency started in 2017 in the same area. You mentioned that this insurgent group, has sworn allegiance to the Islamic State, the so-called Islamic State or Daesh. Tell us a little bit more about the insurgency, who this group is, and how we're so sure that they are linked to Islamic State.
Yes, well, the insurgency, in terms of attack, it started in 2017, October 2017, but this is the first attack. The radicalization process started before. Just to give a context, Mozambique is a majority Christian country, but Cabo Delgado province, which is the far north province, is a Muslim majority province. And we have two different groups, the two different groups of Muslim in Mozambique, the Wahhabis and Sufi. So they have been fighting between themselves. So when the radicalization started, several people in Cabo Delgado have been sending their children abroad to Saudi Arabia, to Sudan, to learn about Islam, which is not a problem. But when they came back to Mozambique, they found that the Islam that is practiced in Cabo Delgado is different from the one they did learn abroad. So they started to fight among themselves. So problems started in Cabo Delgado. 5 years before the first attack in 2017, some groups of radical Islamists started to kill some people, to prohibit people, for example, to sell alcohol, which is allowed in terms of Mozambican law, to prevent children to attend public schools, for example. So the process started, and the government did not understand that this was a huge problem. The government misunderstood the real impact of this problem. It said, okay, this is just a religious problem, so we're not going to intervene. Then the situation grew up until 2017, when this group started to attack for the first time in Musimbo da Praia. So for 6 months, from 2018 until, let me say, July 2019, the group was attacking by itself using machetes, axes, and other what is said to be white weapons to kill people, behead villagers. But it was not facing the government. It hadn't a regular army like it has now. So in 2019, this group pledged allegiance to the Islamic State. Then it started to grow bolder. They now have very sophisticated weapons that we cannot even see with Mozambican army.
So where are they getting their weapons and finances from, Borges?
Well, this is a 1 billion question that I cannot answer you, but different stats show us that they have some logistic from the sea. So they use it maritime corridor to receive their weapons. Well, government invested a lot in maritime patrolling, and then it is also said that they get weapons from Tanzania. It doesn't mean that the weapons comes from Tanzania, but Tanzania might be all the corridor from Somalia, Kenya to Tanzania to bring the weapons. But this is not something new at all, because that region is also known as a drug trafficking corridor. So people use it to bring drug from Pakistan, from Afghanistan, and from other countries in Asia to Cabo Delgado, to enter Mozambique and cross until South Africa and East Europe. So the same drug corridor, it seems to be the same army trafficking weapons corridor. Okay. So there is a kind of a relationship between this very old corridor of a drug that now is being used to bring weapons.
So you're saying that the government has misunderstood the problem. It's not just religious. So are you saying it's because of development hasn't reached the people in that area? They feel discriminated. Natural resources they see are going to foreign companies or the elites. What's fueling the insurgency?
Well, we should consider this dimension of a frustration, of a private deprivation, okay? But relative deprivation. But I don't think that's the main problem, because Mozambique is a poor country. We are poor everywhere, okay? But we don't see insurgency everywhere in Mozambique. Also, when it comes to mineral resource, we have gas in Cabo Delgado, but we have other mineral resources everywhere in the country. We have also gas in Inhambane province. But the problem is not gas itself. Problem is not natural resource itself. Neither the unemployment. I think the problem is the mobilization. The Islamic mobilization played a very important role to mobilize people to fight against the state. In the beginning, those people, not only the beginning, until now, those people, they never claim for employment. They are not fighting for employment. They are not fighting against the corrupt government. I have never heard a single sentence they're saying that we want to take down this corrupt government. They are fighting for Sharia. This is what they say. They say we want to replace the civil law by Islamic law. That is what they say. So we can pretend to say the problem is not the radicalization. We can say the problem is poverty, but then we don't have evidence to say that, because Mozambique is a poor country. And Cabo Delgado, people tend to say Cabo Delgado is the poorest province in Mozambique. That's not true. The poorest province in Mozambique is Niassa. So I see, and there are several studies showing that the main problem in Cabo Delgado was the radicalization, the Islamic radicalization influenced by sheikhs from Tanzania and Kenya, preaching a different Islam to these that have been practiced in Mozambique for centuries. The second problem, which I think is the most important, is the lack of intelligence by Mozambican state, because Mozambican state, they did watch this problem for years and doing nothing to prevent it. So now the conflict has escalated and it's much difficult now to stop it.
Now, we just saw a promotional video from Total itself, and they were talking about 2024, everything's on track. From December itself, before the March 24th attack itself, there were issues there. What does it mean for this project and other projects in the area? Because the World Bank, for example, says that the GDP of Mozambique is what, $15 billion, 1 5, whereas the Total project itself is $20 billion out of $60 billion in the area. And if that is affected, what does that mean for development for the economy in the region?
We have the Total project, which we already have the final investment decision of 20 billion US dollar. But we also have another project with final investment decision from Italian Eni, which is worth 7 billion US dollar. A third project is coming with ExxonMobil, which is worth 30 US billion dollars. So the total investment expected there is far more than 20 billion US dollars. It's around 60 US billion dollar. But coming to this total investment project, it has been halted now because of the attack. This is the second time that Total did stop the construction of the project. But now Total did withdraw completely from the project. So this is a problematic. Analysis says that it means Total won't come back to Mozambique in less than 6 months. So what is feared now is that it can affect the schedule of the construction project. And if it affects the schedule, it will affect the first production of gas. Then the impact will be huge to the clients who have already paid, who already have agreement to buy the gas. And Mozambique is not the sole market. There is another market. So everyone fears that Mozambique can lose the track of gas in market. But even though, my opinion is that we should not look to this LNG project as the hope for Mozambique. Mozambique is a big country with land that we can practice agriculture. So we must understand ourselves so that we cannot fall in a resource course. We must invest in other areas. First of all, we must invest in Mozambican people. Okay, so Mozambican, they can learn how to dig the land to produce their food. So even if Total goes and doesn't come back soon, Mozambique must find a way to survive. Total is just coming, it's just a future. So in the present, we don't have Total. We had Total before, and we're here, and we were surviving here. So I think the key message to the decision makers now is that let's not rely our lives to the LNG project, because they can withdraw at any time. So we need to think our card and build our economy in terms that we can survive even without the LNG.
Right. When you're talking about this group and insurgency swearing allegiance to the Islamic State, the so-called Islamic State. Now, how the Islamic State in its ISIS, Islamic State in Iraq and Syria functioned was to take over resources, whether it was oil, fields or production, and use that as finance. Now, this is not the case here, right? One, of course, Total is nowhere near production stage, and the groups are not as sophisticated. Is that a correct understanding?
Not 100%, because these groups generally they don't only take the gas, for example. They don't need to wait for gas. Imagine they can negotiate with Total, for example, and to say, okay, we don't attack you, and then you pay us. Okay, so that is the situation. This is what won't be the first case in Mozambique. We had here in Mozambique a 16-year civil war, and during the war, we are now learning that the rebel group used it to get payment from businessmen, from companies, just to not target them. So we can consider that this group is not willing to target the LNG project at all. This group is willing to be active around, and then they can get finance. It can be financed by the LNG project, just not be targeted. So this is how the group operates. But also,
we are just seeing Ned Price, the U.S. State Department spokesperson, when he announced that the Islamic State, Mozambique, and Islamic State in Central African region are designated as U.S. foreign terrorist organizations. That happened just before the attack in Palma as well. Tell us about foreign presence in Mozambique. The U.S. has sent 12 Green Berets for 2 months. Portugal is planning to send or has sent. France is planning to send a few troops. How much of a difference does foreign training at such a small level help deal with the situation militarily?
Well, that is a very important question. My opinion is that Mozambique does not need boots on the ground now. I don't think bringing foreigner soldiers to Mozambique will be the solution to our conflict. Simply because you know when they come, but you will never know when they leave. Yeah, that's the first reason. Secondly, I really defend that only Mozambican must stand forward and defend the country, not the foreigners. I completely agree that we get support from the council, our friends, our partner, if it's hard to talk about friends, but our partners. I really agree to have this kind of support. But in training and in equipment, who must lead the fight against the insurgents in Mozambique must be Mozambican army. So Mozambican people must fight against this problem, which is a Mozambican problem. Now, what we have got on the ground, we already have the U.S. Special Forces training Mozambican soldiers, but this is not new at all. We used to have it before. Now it is being publicized because there is a conflict in Cabo Delgado. Also, Portugal is going to send around 60 soldiers to Mozambique to train Mozambican military. That is not new at all. Military cooperation between Mozambique and Portugal always existed. Just to get a very clear example, the current chief staff of army in Mozambique have been trained in Portugal. So this is not new at all. So this is becoming publicized now. But I really think the government have been doing what it can to fight the insurgency. A better solution could be an international force, like, for example, a regional force from SADC or from African Union, so which is different from a bilateral military cooperation. So I would think sending here a regional force for SADC or from African Union would be interesting, just to stop the conflict which is escalating while we gain time to train our own military.
Right. SADC or SADC, South Africa Development Cooperation, I think they've pushed back the Troika meeting till Thursday. African Union you're mentioning as well. But when you say the government can deal with it, that is the military, the police, the uniformed personnel, is that realistic? I mean, is that really happening on the ground? Because when you look at the history of private military contractors, whether it was the Russians first with the Wagner group, then you have the Deep group from South Africa or Zimbabwe, former Rhodesia. Is the military and the government strong enough to deal with the situation? That's my question.
The clear response is no. Mozambique lacks capacity to fight against the insurgency. But the next question is, should we bring the United States here to Mozambique? My question will be no. Let's train our people. So our army have been left behind since the peace agreement in 1992. So it's more than 30 years now that our army have been forgotten. So now it's time to wake up our army and train them to defend the country. I don't think we can rely, at least at this point, we can rely the defense of our country to a foreign intervention. No.
Right. We've not talked about the human cost, the number of refugees, displaced people, IDPs, internally displaced people. Of course, there have been dozens reportedly killed as well in the latest attack in Palma. That's also a dire situation that needs to be tackled, right, Borges?
Well, yeah, this is the worst.
These are in fact pictures that you yourself have taken in the area.
Yes, I've been on the ground working. Basically, my research is conducted in human crisis resulting from this conflict in Cabo Delgado. So we can see here a family resettled in, in the middle of nowhere. So this is how people are living there. So I think this is the worst phase of this conflict. First of all, because the government failed completely in response to the displaced people. Government did not open refugee centers to attend those people who have been fleeing from their homes. So those people have been living in the so-called hostage families. So government just transferred its responsibility to create a condition for those displaced people, did transfer this responsibility to local householders. This is a huge problem. What we can see now, for example, in Pemba, which is the province capital of Cabo Delgado, We have householders with more than 50 people there. The family members plus the IDPs. So this is dramatic. Also, government did not approve a single pen to finance the IDPs. So all the responsibility to attend those people has been left to the United Nations Humanitarian Agency and the other humanitarian organizations. So what is the consequence of that? The consequence of that is that we have now almost 700,000 people who have been displaced from their lands, now are starving around in Cabo Delgado and Nampula. So this is a high risk that this group, in fact, can find those vulnerable people as an opportunity to recruit them to join the insurgents. Government should pay attention to this situation, to assist those people, to try to provide a livelihood means to those people because they are really, really starving. And another thing that I would like to say, of course, we have a United Nations organization there, humanitarian organization there, like a World Food Program in Cabo Delgado. But they're also like financing. In last December, they launched a pledge for $250 million to finance those people. And so far, 4 months since that, they have received only 1% of the amount. So this shows that the world is not helping Mozambique at all, unfortunately. But the government of Mozambique itself is not doing enough to attend those people. And the worst,
taking up from your last point, I just want to raise a point that one of our viewers is raising, local Martian. Are they getting outside military support, and what are the efforts for de-radicalization?
I've lost you. I didn't get your question. I'm sorry.
If you see it on the screen, there's a viewer who's asking, local Martian, is this group getting outside military support? And what are the efforts for de-radicalization, and how bad is the problem of Islamic State in Africa as a whole? Now, Mozambique, we're hearing of it. We know about in the Sahel, in Niger, in Mali as well. How big is the issue in Africa?
Yes, well, we have two different groups of international terrorism in Africa.
Yeah.
We have Al-Qaeda and we have Islamic State. So Islamic State in the region near to Mozambique, I will talk about it here, which is a region that I know very well. They are present in DRC, which is Democratic Republic of Congo. They want to establish a caliphate linking Congo to Mozambique, part of Tanzania. So yeah, that's problem. They are very active here. The situation is even worse in DRC, but also it's worsening in Mozambique. So the question also wants to know how the group is present in Mozambique. Of course, the group is present in Mozambique. We can see some pictures of foreign fighters, which are very famous in the Islamic State strategy. So we have some foreign fighters in Mozambique. Some reports from militaries on the ground, they say that in some attacks they have been seen white-skinned people, which is not common in Mozambique. Even in the Mozambican army, we don't have white-skinned people fighting. So we cannot imagine those people are Mozambican. Of course, they are white Mozambicans in Mozambique, but those white Mozambicans are not even in the army. So it's likely they are foreign fighters. But also, this group, the Islamic State, so far is the sole group in the world that have been claiming the attacks. So every single attack, there is no another group in the world, even in Mozambique, even abroad, that claims the attack, except the Islamic State. So we cannot pretend to say that they are not present here in Mozambique. So regarding the radicalization, what's happening? Unfortunately, nothing at all. Now the government is struggling to try to stop the conflict because the conflict has escalated now. So the priority now is to try to stop the conflict. There are very few initiatives by United States NGOs. I know some of them and the other South African NGOs trying to implement a CVA, counter-violence extremism initiative, but so far they have no results.
Not been successful.
Yeah.
I know India and Mozambique have different kind of cooperation. There is some military cooperation. I'm not sure exactly of what. The last I heard in March was that we were providing locomotives and railway engines and railway wagons. Is there anything that India can do in this situation?
Yes, there is a lot that India can do here in Mozambique. First of all, to help to take control over the Indian Ocean, which is the same ocean with Mozambique and India. Okay, because those people
The
they
route
use
where they
Indian.
get their weapons,
Yes,
or even travel.
Yes, if even travel. So if India could assist in this, it would be very important. But also, I know, I'm doing my master in maritime security, and I know very well that there is a big cooperation between Mozambique and India. Even Mozambican force now, Mozambican Navy now have some, not ships, but some boats that have been given by India.
Fast interceptors, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think India could do. So far, I did not hear anything about that. I do recognize this is a difficult time for all the countries. The countries are struggling to try to contain COVID in their own land, so it's difficult to assist Mozambique. But I think India has a lot to teach Mozambique, has a lot to share with Mozambique, not all the equipment, but also the experience, because I know India is a country that have been also suffering from terrorism with the same roots, for example, like in Mozambique. So I think that Indian government should see how to assist Mozambique in this problem.
Borges Nhamirre, absolutely appreciate your time explaining us to the situation that is what is happening in Mozambique and what can be done. Thank you so much for appearing on StratNews.
Thank you.
And just a reminder that if you want to get notifications for videos like this one, you can just click on the bell icon on YouTube. You can also follow us on social media handles on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. And a thank you to Munish Rathi, who's put in a $5 New Zealand saying that he loves StratNews Global and hopes that we get more support. Best of luck. Thanks, Munish, and we're looking forward to all of your support. You've been watching The Gist on StratNews Global. I'm Amitabh.